This is the Big Fish Cares Podcast. Big Fish Cares Podcast. And here's your host, Benny Fisher.
Every CEO has a vision to growing their company or running it better. But for most, the vision and dreams is as far as it goes. And when the company grows, so does the CEO's problems. I know this because I'm going through it right now. And sometimes we can't seem to hire the right people or grow your team. And we can't execute on the growing list of urgent, high-impact projects. And we can't even begin to think about positioning the company to sell. And if you're having that struggle, you're going to want to listen to this podcast because I have an amazing guest today. Cameron Herold joins us today. He's the author of one of my favorite books, Vivid Vision, and his newest book, The Second in Command. And there's a slew of other books that I don't have time to mention now, but he's the mastermind behind the exponential growth of hundreds of companies. As the founder of the COO Alliance and the Invest in Your Leaders course, Cameron is a dynamic consultant who has coached some of the biggest names in business, including Sprint Telecom and a monarchy in the Middle East. Known as the CEO Whisperer, Cameron has a reputation for guiding his clients to double their profits and revenue in just 3 years or less. Cameron's entrepreneurial journey began at the young age, and by 35, he has helped build his first two $100 million companies. Wow, that's crazy. But his greatest achievement came as the COO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK, where he engineered the company's spectacular growth. Listen to this, guys. From $2 million to $106 million in revenue, and from 14 employees to 3,100 employees, all in just 6 years. That is fascinating. Cameron is not just a successful business leader, but also a captivating speaker. The current publisher of Forbes magazine, Rich Karlgaard, stated Cameron Herold is the best speaker I've ever heard. He hits grand slams. And when he's not on stage, Cameron continues to teach through his Second in Command podcast, his best-selling books, like we mentioned, Vivid Vision, Meeting Suck, Free PR, Double Double, and The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs. And Cameron's also a top-rated international speaker and has been paid to speak in 26 countries. And this is my favorite part of this whole bio, is the 7 continents, including Antarctica, which I'm going to ask him about, that he spoke in early 2022. He's also a top-rated lecturer at the MIT's Entrepreneur Masters Program and powerful and effective speaker at CEO and COO leadership events worldwide. My boy, my friend on Facebook, Cameron Herold, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Benny, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. I'm adding country number 27 that I'm getting paid to speak in. Next month, I'm getting paid to speak in Cairo over in Egypt, so that'll be kind of cool.
I've been watching you on Facebook, and you got your wife, and you guys are just having a blast. It looks like you're just going everywhere. And I'm thinking, man, like this guy's really living the dream. He's kind of I think he's manifested this because I can tell that just through his work and through his books and the way he's having fun and what he's doing with his personal brand. Like I'm super fascinated with all of this. There's a lot of places I want to start, but let's talk about Antarctica first. How did you get a speaking gig in Antarctica? Tell me about that.
I'll give you the short version of it is about 30 years ago, my grandfather gave me a book called Endurance, and I was blown away by this story about Ernest Shackleton. And Shackleton's whole voyage down there just kind of blew my mind. And so I'd always been enamored with the thought of Antarctica. And then I decided years ago to run a mastermind group and bring a group of entrepreneurs down there. And I worked with different boats and tour groups and started figuring out all the numbers. And then a former client of mine, Yannick Silver, reached out to me and he said, hey, I'm pulling a group together to Antarctica this year. And I'm like, holy shit. And he'd taken nine different groups to Necker Island. 9 years in a row, he took people to Richard Branson's island. And Richard's there for all 7 days, by the way, of that event. And when Yannick puts on an event, they're amazing. So I'm like, okay, if you're going to do the event at Antarctica, I want to be there. But I said, one of my dreams is to get paid to speak on all 7 continents. And he goes, done. You will be a paid speaker. You're speaking in Antarctica. So I've got photos of me speaking on the boat to all the group and got the check afterwards and, checked off country or continent number 7 that I've been paid to speak on now.
Now, do we know if any of your other colleagues or other, gurus have ever done that feat? Because that's a pretty amazing feat.
Yeah, I looked it up, and there's a couple who you can see if you look up like paid to speak on 7 continents. There's a couple names out there. I can't think of any off the top of my head who their names were, so it's none of like my contemporaries. But it's pretty rare. Like even if you're a big name speaker, it's still Antarctica's tough, Asia's tough. Australia. I've spoken in Australia 3 different times. It's just a pain in the ass to get to.
Yeah, well, I feel like even like, Africa, I guess unless you can get a gig in South Africa. You said you're going to Cairo, which is pretty interesting.
Well, I already did. Yeah, I did Morocco. I spoke in Morocco back in 2007.
I don't know much about that whole speaking circuit worldwide, but I did have a manifestation in a dream. We were having our EOS 2-day annual last month, and everybody was asking, everybody what their dreams were, and I came up with one really quick, something really big. I said, I want to have a paid speaking gig in Dubai, speaking to world leaders about love and forgiveness. And I want to take a private jet over there, right? And like that's the dream. So I am going to start manifesting that. I'm going to start working on that.
Well, the private jet part is tough, but if you send me an email, I can introduce you to a few people that book speakers in Dubai. I spoke there 11 years ago, and I'll be in Dubai for the third time this year next month. So
I want one of those rich oil guys to like just fly me over in his jet, just because like I just think it would be cool to bring a couple of my buddies. So it's got to be with the jet, but I got to elevate, right? I got to give enough value. So I'm gonna work my way up. But one thing I knew when I was doing a little bit of research on you, because I wanted to kind of get to know you ahead of time without having to ask you a ton of questions. And one thing I found that we're similar on is that you have ADD. Tell me about that, and tell me about what your experiences is. I was diagnosed when I was 7. That was 1988 when it was first like hot off the press, I feel like. And I dealt with a lot of like stigma from my teachers, my mom and dad, kids in school. Tell me about your journey with ADD. Yeah,
so I was diagnosed with ADD. I'm also on the spectrum. I've got 11 of the 11 traits of bipolar disorder, and I have a form of dyslexia called dyscalculia, where I flip my numbers around. So at quite a young age, the teachers in the school system started getting frustrated with me because I was distracting. I was talking a lot. I was always selling stuff to the kids. I wasn't paying attention. I was bored in class. I was really smart, but I was really bored. I just didn't see the point, and they were boring teachers. And there was just a lot of stuff going on. So they kept telling me there was a problem. My dad, when we were in grade 6, I was sitting outside the principal's office. He was inside, and he was yelling at the principal, and he came out and he opened the door and grabbed me by the hand. And he goes, "Let's go, we're leaving." And I said, "What happened?" He said, "There's nothing wrong with you. The problem is the school. You're just like me. You're an entrepreneur." And so at a young age, I realized and was kind of taught that my ADD was not a disability at all. It was a superpower. And so I've learned with entrepreneurs, and I've diagnosed many. This is how I met the CEO of Sprint. I diagnosed him on a plane as having ADD, bipolar, and Tourette's. And Marcelo Claret blew him away. I started coaching he and his second in command, Jamie Jones. The ADD is an entrepreneurial superpower because you see what's happening with the market, the economy, your suppliers, your customers, little problems with the website. You notice all the little stuff, and then you prioritize it based on urgency and impact in your brain because there's too much going on. So a lot of the little things that you notice and others notice can get overwhelming, so you just have to delegate them or get other people to do stuff, which helps you scale, right? The nagging of stuff that you see helps you get that forward progress and momentum. So it's really a superpower. You don't find a lot of very, very highly focused people like engineers or doctors that are entrepreneurs because they miss all the other stuff, right? They can't see the forest for the trees.
That's so awesome. You said that so like poetically.
Well, let me tell you about the bipolar component, because the bipolar disorder has been nicknamed by the medical community as the CEO disease. So most entrepreneurial CEOs are on the spectrum for bipolar. The mania is why people follow us. It's why they quit their jobs. It's why they join us. It's why they'll invest in our company. It's why people will say yes to partnering with us. It's because they love that crazy frenetic energy, and we often have no idea how we're going to pull it off, but we're that perpetual motion machine, and that mania and energy is so exciting. The stress and depression is simply us course correcting because we don't really have a peer group of people we can tell. We don't tell our spouse and our friends or our family. Nobody really understands the stress that we're under and how it gets magnified. Like, we'll make a promise to somebody to quit their job and come and join us. Meanwhile, we're not quite sure how we're going to meet payroll. And that stress magnifies, right? So most entrepreneurial CEOs are on the spectrum for bipolar. And I don't make fun of bipolar. My son, 22-year-old, has been clinically diagnosed as bipolar, was in an elevated hypomanic state and spent 5-6 days in the psych ward. So I understand it as a disease as well. But I'm right there on the spectrum and have made... Anyway, but again, that's a superpower. When you understand how to leverage what others call a disease It's just because we're not like teachers and not like doctors that they think there's something wrong with us, but we don't see a lot of teachers and doctors that are that inspiring.
I'm with you, man, and I can't wait to let my mom watch this and all the teachers watch this, because I didn't really get control of this whole situation for me until I was 37, 38. I'm only 41 now, so
of course
I kind of dealt with this and kind of went through a really rough and tumble background. Fired from all the jobs. The stories are very typical.
And the jobs are boring.
Yeah, they weren't for the first 2 months, and then after I figured it out, it got boring, right? Yeah.
Right.
And they were always sales jobs, but I can't sell the same thing over and over again. I get too bored with it. So
you're right, and we see the bigger picture, and we want to run the company. So those are natural traits of entrepreneurs, and what's frustrating for those around us is they don't understand us.
So let's get right into it. So this is another thing. So I have a COO, the integrator, right, at my company. I went down the whole rocket fuel EOS rabbit hole a few years back, and it's really changed my life, right? That structure, that framework has allowed me to use my superpowers in a way that I never thought was ever going to be possible, right? So yeah. I'm going to fix my focus here real quick.
Gino Wickman, when he wrote Traction, and then when he and Mark Winters wrote Rocket Fuel, did the entrepreneurial community a huge favor in identifying that entrepreneurs are allowed to be crazy, allowed to be different, allowed to be visionary, and they're not supposed to be great at running their companies. Entrepreneurs need to know what has to happen, but other people have to know how to do it. We just have to be aware that it exists, but others have to figure out how to integrate it, right? The classic example right now, the biggest buzz in business right now is AI and ChatGPT and all the other AI tools. We just have to know that AI can be applied in every fucking area of our business, and we got to get our people spending 30 minutes a day figuring out where to put it in, because we can't figure it all out, but we sure they can. So when we start challenging people with what we intuitively know can happen, they can figure it out for us. We just have to be pointing them in the right direction.
You ain't kidding, man. 2 months ago, I kept telling, my integrator, my marketing manager, I'm like, this is going to change our life. I said, it's got at least changed my life. It makes me write like a pro now. I said, I look all professional and stuff like that. It's pretty slick.
Well, it's not even just that. I just sent you a link to a dashboard that has hundreds of different AI tools that are available. Forget about ChatGPT. That's just one tool.
That was the gateway.
Exactly. There's tools for all kinds of cool stuff, right? For video and for speech.
Yeah, I got a buddy that's in the roofing industry that's really a nerd with it, man. He's a big Alex Hormozy fan, and Hormozy's been talking about it a lot. But I want to get back to the COO thing, because that's what your newest book's about. And my COO is your classic COO. He's actually more of a CFO that I'm trying to mold into a COO. And he's very, on the DISC assessment, he's a high C, right? Okay. And he's middle level, D-I and S, very just not like me, right? So we have the same values, we have the same intensity, but the way we think is completely different. And sometimes me and him struggle to get our points of view across to each other. We've gotten better over the last couple of years, but my ADHD has always been a problem to the organized people around me. And I try to explain to them as much as I can and try to coach them and try to give them books about, ADHD and how to operate for me. But do you have any quick tips or tricks out there for guys like me and guys like them how do we all get along?
Well, so it kind of goes back to the whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus, right? Men are not hairy versions of women. Women are different, guys are different. We think differently, we see the world differently, we respond and react differently to things. The key is, how do we understand women and how do women understand men? In the business world, it's very similar. CEOs and second in commands, whether it's CFOs or COOs, whoever, they think and act differently than we do. The key is, how do we understand the other person enough? Because we can't change them. So how do we understand them more? You mentioned DISC. I'm a 98D and a 74I. I'm running so fast I can't even see where we're going, but I know I'm going to get there quicker. On the Colby profile, I'm a 4393. So I'm a high quick start, which means I execute now, I plan later. Stuff just happens quickly. I end up screwing things up because I react or respond very quickly. I don't necessarily think, but that perpetual motion is what propels me in life and in business. So we need to then teach that to our COOs, that we think out loud, go for a walk with us and let us just talk. We can't sit in our chair. We get too antsy. So let's just let us stand up in a meeting room and walk around a little bit. Hey, by the way, write down what we say, but we're not going to mean what we say until we get to the end of the 20 minutes. We're probably going to, because we're still thinking out loud, right? So all the stuff that comes out of our head is our thoughts. Then what we need to do is we need to flip the script a little bit, and we need to learn to understand them. We need to understand that they like to ask questions. And when they ask us a bunch of questions, they're not arguing with us. They're trying to understand us. They're trying to
I always get so intimidated when he fires off emails to me and they're always so matter of fact. I'm like, oh my gosh, he doesn't like me.
Yeah, we take everything personally, right? Because we're still trying to get the praise that we never got in school. So whenever anyone criticizes us, right? So as soon as we understand that about ourselves, then our second in command can understand that about us, but we need to understand it about them, right? We need to shine the spotlight on each other. So there's a good couple of sections in my book, The Second in Command, where we talk about that and how to actually support each other, how to communicate with each other, how to build a strong relationship. So a couple ways are both of you do a DISC profile and then get someone like Steve Sisler, who's an expert in DISC, to walk both of you through your profiles together, to teach you about your CFO/CSO, to teach them about you. Go do a Colby profile. If each of you do a Colby A and then pay the Colby group like $150, they'll do a call with you to talk to both of you about each other. Do your love languages. Each of you do your love language. Like each of you do all these different profiles maybe once every 6 months to learn more about each other, just to continue to grow together versus apart.
He told me if I give him one more, because I've been on the assessment kick for the last 2 years. He's like, if I give him one more assessment, he says he's quitting. Because I literally give him an assessment all the time.
But are you showing him your assessments in the same tools?
Oh yeah. I mean, he knows. It's like again, because he's the guy that's running the company, and he's got 55 to do, and he's like he's in that zone. And again, I'm trying to get we're still a young company. We've only been around 7 years. I brought him in 2 years ago to kind of help just get that next level to get there. And we're almost there. I'm actually trying to talk him into going to your retreat. I've asked him 3 times. So I told him, I said, hey, it's a gift from the company. I said, he's also a part owner. So part of the times, it's like, oh, it's an expense. I'm like, no, just my gift, just go.
We've probably got 20% of our COO Alliance members are co-owners in the company. It would be really, really great for him to show up at this one. We've got 3 spectacular speakers coming to our April in-person event.
I want him to. I told him, I said, because him and his wife are going to be in Denver or Colorado doing like some hiking like right after that. I said, just go to Scottsdale, or I think wherever it's at in Arizona. I said, leave your wife at the spa, go to the retreat with Cameron and hang out with the other CEOs and just come back and let me know what you learned. Because I just, I'm hanging around with other entrepreneurs all the time, right? And that's like all I hang out with. And it's helped me so much, in business.
Well, and this retreat is based on one that my wife and I just came back from in October over in Bhutan. We were hiking in Bhutan with the monks. We spent time meditating, living in monasteries. And it was a lot of exercises at going deep. And so this event is around going deep with yourself, going deep with your leadership team, going deep with your CEO, and building out stronger communication, stronger trust, stronger leverage. And it's going to be about 45 amazing COOs from all over North America that are going to be there connecting. We've got Chip Connolly, who is the founder of the Joie de Vivre hotel chain. He was the mentor and on the board of Airbnb. He mentored the founders of Airbnb. We have Don DePani, who is a monk and has been paid to speak all over the world. Then we've got Warren Rustand, who has sold $2 billion companies that he built. He was an advisor to a president. I've seen Warren speak 6 times, and every time I see him speak, I feel like a shell of a human. He blows my mind every single time.
That's awesome. Back to, not the sidetrack, but when you were giving me your disc, I'm a 100I and a 94D.
Right there, on.
And I have like a 22S and a 5 and like a 2C or 5C or something. It's really bad.
I'm around the 20s for both too.
And then I'm a Colby. I'm a 6292 to give you a little profile on me.
Yeah, you ask a few more questions. You're a quick start, but you ask a few more questions. That's actually pretty good because it prevents you from making some stupid decisions.
Yeah, I don't go as fast. I mean, I want to go fast, but I don't go fast like some people think I do. I go fast with a little bit more maybe learner, strategic. And then on Strength Finders, I'm activator, woo, futuristic, competition, and ideation. which I feel like makes a good, the activator and the woo with the futuristic is like a very good visionary. And once I read that book by Gino, man, I was like, that's me.
Here's my thoughts around all this stuff on personality profiles. Is they're horrible for hiring.
Yes.
They're fantastic for once you have the team getting to know each other so that you learn about each other so that you work better together. It's really how do you get to know him and he get to know you to build that strong relationship so that you go, oh, I know what you're doing. You kind of start to read each other's minds because you just know the other's personality so well. And now it doesn't grate on you. It's just like, oh, here it comes. There it was. Like you just roll with it.
I will say that we, because we have like a 3-step interview process. On the third interview, when it's down to like 1 or 2 people, we will run a predictive index and a disc, not to make the decision, just to verify what we thought was already true. But we do love to use the disc for all the team communication stuff. I bring in a disc coordinator once a quarter, right after our quarterly kickoff, and we always do a team building exercise, and everybody loves that.
That's great.
I'm in a home improvement business, so I got service techs there all the way to the CEO, right, and everyone in between, and everybody gets value out of they always make fun of me too. I'm the easy target in the room, right? So she always gets up and says, "Yeah, anytime you have to deal with Ben, right?" And da, 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 da. So it's been really cool, man, and I think that. It's important for leaders to understand their people, and I think it's an easy way and a quick way to kind of get the data on people, and then once you start nerding, I call it nerding out on it. You can start recognizing it without even having to run the assessment. Once you start knowing how to ask the right questions.
The data is so real. We've had every single member of our COO Alliance do the Kolbe A profile, and we've had all of their CEOs do the Kolbe A profile. Most of the CEOs are very high third numbers. They're high quick starts. And almost all of our second in commands are high on the first 2 numbers. So they ask a lot of questions and they put systems in place before they start. Right? They're fact finders and follow throughs. It's extraordinary to see that that's the DNA.
Yeah, that's cool. So the second in command book, right? I mean, your podcast is called The Second in Command. Why did it take you so long to write this book? Because I feel like this is this is what you're kind of known for almost a little bit. I mean.
Yeah, I think it was, I know what it was. When I wrote my first book 12 years ago, I never wanted to be an author. So it was a lot of work to get the book done. I got it done, got it out the door. It was called Double Double. It's been very successful. And that really built my brand and built my speaking platform. And then I met the guys from Scribe. They used to be called Book in a Box. And I became an advisor and an investor in Scribe. And I've written 3 books with them now, and those were more opportunistic. They were easy to get out the door. They were good, but they were, again, more brand building. I make money off all of them, and that was Vivid Vision Meeting, Suck, and Free PR. The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs was Hal Elrod coming up to me at a mastermind community and asking me to co-author it with him, and I just went, hell yeah, let's do it. So the Second in Command was all of a sudden one that I felt I needed to do because of the COO Alliance, because of the Second in Command podcast, but I also recognized it was going to be a lot of work to do it properly. And I've spent way more work putting this book together than any other book that I've pulled together.
And that's the other thing, because with ADD, that's like the last thing we want to do is sit down and try to organize all of our thoughts. So, and I know you use Scribe, and I know that they make it really simple, but for the people out there trying to do a book, what's the framework? How do you get started with something like this if you're not using a company like Scribe?
Yes, it's the same way that I even did my first book, Double Double. So what I did was I decided what the purpose and the outcome of the book was. And then based on the purpose and the outcome of the book, I wrote the table of contents, just the rough chapters that were going to be in the book. Okay. And then for each of the chapters, I made a list of 5 to 7 key bullet points that I would talk about. Now with Double Double, I walked around with a wireless headset and recorded it all back in the Dragon dictation days. With Scribe, I do it with them over Zoom. They transcribe it all, and then they ask me questions. And we do about 6 or 7 rounds of interviews with them where they keep asking questions about all the content to go deeper and go deeper and go deeper. And I literally pace and talk.
Yeah,
and pace
that's good. It's almost like a podcast style, right? You can just kind of give them everything you got inside of you, and and start speaking with more passion, and I'm sure it can come through in the book. And those guys that are probably smart with the editing and the wordsmithing can make it sound a little sexier, right? And
well, then I was able to send them a few speaking events that I'd done, some podcast interviews I'd done, and I was able to pull all this content together, and they were able to mesh it all together. And then, then they put it through the 4 or 5 rounds of editing for me so that it comes off properly, it's polished. I think we found one typo in the book so far out of like 200 and some odd pages. So I really wanted it to be tight grammatically, tight for typeset. Like I wanted to look and feel as solid as it was written. And then I went into studio and recorded it all too. I did my own audio recording, which was painful.
How painful is that? How many takes you got to do? Like, what is that like?
It was 2 8-hour days.
Standing there, right?
Standing. Standing, because the voice is better standing, and you have to be very still while you're standing, because if you make moves, like it's just freaking painful. I did it over the
and you have to probably go with the same cadence, and you got to try to use the same inflection, right? And you got to that would be painful.
It was tough. It was good. I'm glad I did it. But now I realize that I think I can take that recording and a few of my speaking events and have AI figure my voice out, and I think I can upload. So I'm going to try to get one of my other books done by AI in my voice and see how it sounds.
And then what if they take all of your books, upload that into AI, take all of your speaking engagements, upload those transcriptions into AI, all the times you do retreats, upload those into AI, and the next thing you know, Cameron, I saw that you do coaching, and you do like 10 clients a year. You'll do 100 clients because it'll be the robot.
I'm not sure that's one of the reasons why I started the COO Alliance. Is I'm not sure I'll be relevant in 10 years for coaching with everything else that's happening and with AI that's coming. I wanted to build a community instead of me now.
But there's, but in the metaverse though, there'll be Cameron Herold. I'll put the goggles on. I'll put the goggles on, and for 99 cents a month, I can get you, right? And you can get thousands and thousands of CEOs, and probably you make even more money, right?
It's true. You ask me questions, and I can answer them over the AI.
So let's talk about this like personal brand, right? Because I've actually started, I'm a big Gary Vee guy. The Facebook came out in like 2010. I was, my uncle was in the roofing business. I was, helping him and just trying to learn small business. And at the same time, this Gary Vaynerchuk's always in my ear, right? Hustle, social media. And I started, I have no marketing background, professional marketing background, but, being the ADD that I am, I'm always paying attention. I'm always looking at things. I know what I like. I love customer service, right? I like high level things. And I just started being obsessed with brand building and marketing. And that's kind of how I came up with the Big Fish Contracting Company, right? My last name's Fisher. I'm not a small guy. So we're going to make it a brand, right? And then when I turned the company over to the COO over the last 2 years, these visionaries, they get a little antsy, and they're not allowed to go into work anymore and stir up a bunch of stuff. So I was like, you know what? I think it's time to start focusing on more content creation. Start a podcast, which is what I'm doing right now.
Totally.
Get that personal brand website. So I got the bennyfisher.com, and I was looking at your website, and I saw all those cool things. I'm like, you're a coach, you got the podcast, you're an author, you got the retreat with the COO Alliance, you got a course. And I'm like, yeah, man, that's cool. Because now, even after all your successful exits and after all the success you've had at your day job, it's like you can go live the life of your dreams, have that website kind of run on its own, do what you want, have fun doing it, right? I could tell that you're kind of you're creating your own lifestyle. Tell me how it all ties in with the books. Do you have to have all the books for the marketing of it? Do you have to have the podcast for the marketing of it? I know it probably helps, but...
So it starts off with my core purpose, right? My core purpose of helping entrepreneurs make their dreams happen. That allows me to say yes and no to things, right? And it's not work for me to share my ideas and help entrepreneurs because it's fun and it's aligned with my core purpose. If you were somebody who was doing something for doctors, I would have said no to this podcast. If you were doing a podcast for chiropractors, I would have said no. If you were doing a podcast for government people, I wouldn't have even taken your call. So, and then my books are aligned with that as well. So everything I do makes money, right? All of my books make money. My books have elevated my brand. My books drive the funnels of this, either the coaching or speaking or COO Alliance. The podcast, again, is great for the COO Alliance exposure. I would say now that almost everyone who joins the COO Alliance has been listening to the podcast. It also gives me a chance to amplify their message and put some of them on the podcast.
Yeah, it's good networking, right?
Yeah, my coaching, I charge $96,000 now for a 190-minute phone call a month. Like I'm not cheap.
I saw that. Yeah. I mean, like $1 million a year, you deal with 10 guys, you travel the world and do whatever you want, right? Like.
Yeah. 9 guys. Yeah.
Or 9 guys. Well, it says you do up to 10, so maybe you got a spot open.
Yeah,
maybe
sorry. I was doing monthly.
Open.
I was doing monthly. Yes, you're right. 10 people is $1 million a year in coaching. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, hey, listen, for you entrepreneurs out there that want to get to $1 million a year, man, that's the one way to do it, right? Have 10 clients at $100,000 a year, and boom.
Well, it takes a while to get to the night before you become the overnight success.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
and I think that's what people have got to recognize. I think there's a lot of people out there that are trying to jump too quickly and it takes time to build a community and trust and relationships. And, I was on Facebook. I was the first employee that I knew of at 1-800-GOT-JUNK to be on Facebook back in 2007, April or March of 2007. Everybody was laughing at me. I was on Twitter same year, 2007, 2008. Like, I was early in these things.
You're early to everything, if you're like me.
I was in the first 200,000 people in the world on LinkedIn back in 2003. So I've been into social media for a long time as a way to share my message, share my ideas, and connect. I've joined lots of mastermind communities. I'm going to 4 different mastermind events this year. So I invest
as a guest or as a speaker, or like you're just going as a consumer. Like, tell me how that works at your level now.
I'm going to the Maine 5-day TED conference. It'll be my 9th or 10th time at the Maine 5-day TED. So that's just as an attendee. I'm going to one called Baby Bathwater in Croatia as an attendee. I'm speaking as well. Going as an attendee to one in Uganda. I went to the Maine Genius Network as an attendee. And then, what was another one I just went to? Giovanni's Archangel Academy. I was an attendee and I ran a couple of roundtables. So it depends. Sometimes I'm an attendee. Sometimes I morph into a thought leader. Sometimes I'm just there to learn.
And it's all fun. Like, at the end of the day, I know it's all fun because I'm loving going to conferences. I'm loving going to events. And I'm actually loving when I just go to one and I'm actually just sitting there, not having to do content or get up on stage or do a breakout session. It's something I love the EOS one. Because I just go there and I just get to be like a fly on the wall, and it's really fun for me because it's not as intense because I can just sit there and learn.
Gino Wickman, who founded EOS Traction, he and I were in 2 masterminds together. We were both in Strategic Coach together, and we were both in the Genius Network together. We also went to Abundance 360 a couple times together. So here's 2 guys that run big communities that are also in communities.
Yeah, it was cool. I got to ask him a question at the conference last year, and then I got a selfie with him. And he's a very quiet and quick. He gets in and gets out. A lot different than you, right? I mean, you're out there. You're out. You're like a marketing. Genius. And in Gino, you couldn't find him online to save his life. So. It's an interesting, different way that you guys are, doing life. But I definitely understand some of the things he was talking about. I know that he has to be in the meditation and some of this more holistic approach to life because he's got some of these thoughts. I mean, the way that he wrote the EOS Life and that whole series, I mean, to be a wired entrepreneur, I feel like he's had to go through some learning and some calming down, right? I mean,
we all do. This is part of the mania, part of the bipolar is I think it's important for all entrepreneurs to go through some calming down, right? To find some time to disconnect, to find some ways to disconnect. And also that's why my core purpose is so important because it helps me say no to things as well.
Yeah. So tell me about this travel lifestyle that you have. Were you doing that always? Or did you get into these retreats and these masterminds and didn't spark your interest to go travel the world? Which came first?
I've always traveled. Back in 1991 when I was 25, I sold everything, sold my home. I'd graduated from university. I'd run a business for a couple of years and then I sold everything and traveled for 18 months and just really got to see the world and that blew my mind. So I've always been into travel. And then being able to be paid to go speaking in all these countries as well really kept showing me the rest of the world. And then my wife and I just started talking about what we both wanted. I just dropped a link into the chat that you can share. It's our vivid vision for what we want our relationship to look like and how we want our lives together. And some of that is living globally and being able to travel and being able to explore the world. And, it's by committing it to writing and then rereading it and sharing it with others that it starts to keep us focused on doing what's important to us. And, some of that for us was just being able to live this global lifestyle and be able to be around the world.
What tips do you have for entrepreneurs whose wives might not be so into the whole entrepreneurial journey, all the fame, all the fortune, all the publicity? How have you navigated that over your life and your career?
Well, I mean, you can also choose a different style of being an entrepreneur, too. I know many entrepreneurs that aren't in the limelight, that aren't leveraging social media, that aren't leveraging PR. They might be growing with business development or marketing. I just found that for me, PR and marketing, or PR and social media, were very easy, affordable ways to get mass exposure. And that could grow my brand and keep my business small, which kept my gross margin high. So for me, it's just a different style business. When we built 1-800-GOT-JUNK, I grew them from 14 employees to 3,100 employees in 6 years. In that 6 year, think about how long you've been running your business. That's when I went from 14 to 3,100. That was by leveraging PR. We got 5,200 individual unique stories about us in 6 years. So the price of that was we got well known. Well, the benefit of that was we also were able to build a company and build cash flow and build our brands. And, it's just...
Is that healthy to grow that fast, that quick?
We did it. We ranked as the number 2 company in the country to work for. So we made sure that we never compromised our core values, that we never compromised profitability, and we gave up no equity. So we made sure that we would keep it healthy, right? We made sure that we wouldn't burn out.
I see that. I mean, the biggest thing I see, that I struggle with is onboarding and recruiting. Not as much as recruiting anymore because we have a pretty good brand, but the onboarding and the training. There's always a gap. At least I'm in the home improvement business where the leadership level, there's a gap between the leadership team and then the salespeople, the operations team. There's maybe a little bit of a leadership gap between the mid-level managers right now through this growth that I'm going through from 5 to 10 million and trying to then, I think once we get past, I think this year we'll get past $10 million in revenue. I see a lot more.
Yeah, you're at a hurdle.
Yeah, it's like a black hole right now, man. It is the black hole of just investment into leadership, training, onboarding, all this stuff that sucks away the net profit right now. But
yeah, what happens at this stage? So the transitions are at every 1 and every 3. So when you go from 100,000 to 300,000 to 1 million to 3 million to 10 million to 30 million, those are the hurdles. The hurdle that you're at right now, the big struggle is all of your managers, their solution to every problem is hire more people. And that's not actually the solution. So what ends up happening is between 10 and 30 million, you have a lot of waste. You end up churning through waste. You end up mishiring people. You end up, overhiring in some areas. So really keep an eye on your revenue as a percentage your salary as a percentage of revenue, and then keep revenue per employee and gross margin per employee. Track those on a quarterly basis and make sure you're gaining efficiency.
Yeah.
And then always grow your people. I launched a course called Invest in Your Leaders that's exactly for that purpose of growing our people. Right? If we grow our people, grow their skills, not on what we do, but on how to actually lead and how to be more effective and how to be more efficient. So growing them around situational leadership and coaching, delegation, time management, project management, interviewing, running meetings, the kind of 12 core leadership competencies. That's how we scaled College Pro Painters. That's how we scaled Gerber Auto Collision. That's how we scaled Boyd Auto Body, was always around, and 1-800-GOT-JUNK was always by growing the skill sets of our people.
College Pro Painters. I'm glad you mentioned that. I have a couple buddies up in Vancouver that got their starts there. Danny Kerr is one of them. James Dell, Igor. They run a education thing called Breakthrough Academy, and it's for painting contractors.
Igor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I met him. I don't remember what the hell. I met Igor. I don't know the other two, but I met Igor at a restaurant a few years ago. College Pro was my real world MBA. I was on the very, very senior leadership team of College Pro. So we had to go out and hire 800 franchisees every year and train them all to run a business. And then in 1 month, they had to hire 8,000 painters. We had to train 8,000 university kids to paint houses in 1 month. And then between May 1 and August 31st, we had to paint $64 million in houses. I was there for 7 years, and I opened the West Coast of the United States for them. Kimball Musk worked for me back.
Is that Elon's brother?
Yeah, I hired Kimball Musk back in 1993 and trained him. College Pro is written up in Elon's book because they funded it based on Kimball's College Pro painters experience. I also trained his brother or his cousin Peter Reeve, who built Solar City. They were both employees of mine.
That's a bomb.
Yeah, College Pro is where I learned everything. 1-800-GOT-JUNK is where I put it in play, but College Pro is where I learned it all.
And so what those three guys are doing now for painters, landscapers, roofers is basically, it's funny you said MBA because they have this Breakthrough Academy where it's a 3-year program. It's a little bit of one-on-one coaching with group coaching and coursework. And you can, I call it, get your MBA to become a better CEO, right? It's perfect for those companies that are about that $1 million revenue, that are trying to get up to 10, 15, 20 million, that need to learn all the different aspects, right? Operations, sales, marketing, HR, training, onboarding. They give you high-level overviews, and there's a lot of documents that they give, a lot of templates. And it's really education. I'm seeing a lot more education now in this home improvement business, and it's starting to become a big business.
Well, because people are recognizing that what we used to train people on, example, in the home improvement, we used to train them on like how to throw a hammer or how to use a level or how to put on shingles. That's not what it's about. My son's actually working at 1-800-GOT-JUNK in the trucks, and at the end of his first day, I said, "How was it?" He goes, "Good." He goes, "You know what? This has nothing to do with junk removal. It's all about engaging with the customer." I'm like, "Dude, you fucking figured it out. Like your first day, and you recognize 1-800-GOT-JUNK is not about junk removal."
Yeah, it's brand and customer service.
You just engage with the customer, man, and then charge more than everybody else so you can deliver your brand. We priced ourselves at the FedEx or the Starbucks of junk removal so that we could afford to hire great people. We could afford to have good branding. We could afford to show up on time. Like we could afford to spend time with the customer, and we could afford to train people. And we didn't hire garbage men. We hired fraternity boys.
Yeah, that's so smart. That's so crazy that you worked with Kimball Musk, man. And
I hired him.
Or hired Kimball Musk. Wow.
I remember the second interview with him. I was so enamored with this South African accent, it kind of blew my mind. He was at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario.
Yeah, and then like that was back when Elon was probably taking PayPal to the moon, right?
No, it was way before PayPal.
Way before PayPal?
I was a reference for them, for Elon and Kimball, in their first round of funding for Zip2 when they had one employee, and I was a business reference for their venture capital round in their first round. When they did their seed round, not even their Series A, they went out and they wanted to raise $600,000. They raised $3 million for a company called Zip2. That was prior to PayPal. They sold Zip2 for about $315 million around 1997 to Compaq, and they had about 19% of the company when they sold.
That's fascinating. The other thing I read too, I can't remember where I read this about you. You said, "Hey, you don't motivate employees; you just hire motivated people."
Yeah, it was fortunate.
I'm starting to feel like that's the new hack that I need to do, because I feel like there's a little bit of complacency setting in because the brand is a little bit strong and the people have been here for a little while, and I feel like the motivation's lacking. Especially the more I get out of the day to day. Obviously, I'm not there on the ground, cheering and high fiving and keeping that going. So tell me a little bit about that.
You're the chief energizing officer. Right? You're the guy stirring the Kool-Aid. No, it's important. Herb Kelleher from Southwest Airlines said that. Somebody said, "How do you get all your employees to be so happy?" He said, "We hire happy people." And it's the same thing. How do you get your employees to be accountable? Hire accountable people. How do you get your employees to be team players? Hire team players. Like, it's so simple, but we don't understand the root kind of first principles thinking around interviewing and hiring. So, at College Pro Painters, as an example, we looked for franchisees that were high in something called affiliation, meaning they wanted to be a part of a group. Meaning they wanted to wear the logo, they wanted to wear the brand, they wanted to come to the retreats, they wanted to come to the meetings, they wanted to fly the flag, they wanted to stir the Kool-Aid. Because we were a little bit more than a business and a little bit less than a religion. We were in the zone of a cult. And that's the difference between good to great, is that when you get the culture right.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the book Legacy about the New Zealand All Blacks team?
No, I know about All Blacks. My youngest son used to do the haka when he was 4. It was hysterical.
Yes, so they talk about the haka, right? There's 15 lessons in leadership, and it's all about, leaving the jersey in a better place than you found it. All the different things that you can parallel sports with business. I think you get some value out of that book.
What was the book called?
It's called Legacy.
Okay, cool. I'll get it for my son too.
It's by James Kerr, and it's just really cool because there's a lot of parallels in sports, And, as an American, I'm not that familiar, right, with the New Zealand All Blacks team. But after doing research, it's like the New England Patriots, right, or like the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? It's just like a big-time organization that always wins. And some of those, there's a chapter in there, no dickheads, right? We don't care if there's a superstar on the team. If they're not fitting the culture, you got to get rid of them. I've dealt with that before in my world, and those are some of the tough lessons. As a young CEO, that because I've never been here before. Tomorrow, when I go into work, it's the next, it's the first day of the rest of my life. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and I'm just I always say I'm winging it, because I've never actually been to tomorrow yet.
Yeah, I think there's something about when we kind of grow up a little bit and get some of the wisdom of leaders that we realize that we don't even have all the answers now either, and it's around surrounding ourselves with people that do and being humble enough to listen and learn, right? And some of that stuff is taking ideas from a sports team, taking ideas from, I call it ideas having sex, right? You take ideas from 2 or 3 different places and they merge into something bigger or better.
And you have a nice little baby. That's cool. And I think that, growth-minded people have to learn from other growth-minded people. I think that's one of the reasons you do the retreats and stuff like that. Something else I found interesting about you, I feel like, are you into like mind expanding, like drugs to like be able to like elevate that visionary inside of you? Talk to me a little bit about like that, because I'm very fascinated with this world as we get more progressive, and I see things, I watch a lot of Netflix documentaries. There's a lot of documentaries on this stuff. Talk to me a little bit about your experience in that world.
Yeah, so yes, I am. So I experimented a little bit with psychedelics, back in the day when, you go to the Grateful Dead shows and you're at university or at college pro retreats, and I would do mushrooms or whatever and had fun and did a little acid and had fun. And as I got older, started to experience it and to explore it with kind of shaman and with doctors. So next week I'm going into a medical facility with a doctor to do another ketamine journey. And it's a full 1-hour intravenous ketamine trip where it's measured and it's dosed out properly, and you just get to completely release and either work through issues or work on deepening yourself. And then a few days after that, we're flying to Austin and we're doing a psilocybin and MDMA journey, again in a guided environment. And then the following day, finishing it off with like massages and ice baths and infrared saunas and like just a full proper experience. So I think there's something there with these to do them in the right setting. And then I use psilocybin microdosing and LSD microdosing as well. I find that there's some huge benefits to using those in the work setting as well.
Does that help with like the ADD and the bipolar, you think, to kind of balance that and manage it?
Unbelievable. Yeah, I can do like about 200 milligrams of psilocybin, which is about 1/10 of a normal dose. So you could drive a car. I could do anything. Like, you don't even know. At the end of the day, you're like, oh, that's what it was. I was so focused today. You forget you're even on it. You just feel like a nice suntan or something on your face. But yeah, I'll do like a small little dose, and then I can get hyper productive for a whole day.
So because there's a lot of people that'll, try to beat, different like illnesses or different like just different PTSD, depression. Right? Like mind-blocking things that are just paralyzing people, right?
Totally.
What are some of the biggest like breakthroughs that you've ever experienced where like you were struggling with something and then you went in with an intention, right, to like, try to like, do something about it. You came out on the other side and you're like, wow, that worked. Is there anything that you're willing to share?
Yeah, I mean, I did a ketamine journey about 2 weeks ago with this physician in Scottsdale, and in the middle of the journey, he came in halfway asking if I wanted more. I'm like, and I've got like an eye mask on and a blanket over top of me. I'm like blissed out, holding onto this crystal just to ground me and remind me that I'm not really tripping, because you're talking to God. Like, you are it's full ego death. You're completely disconnected from everything. You're pretty sure that you're dead. You're okay with dying because it's so profoundly beautiful. I came out of it after the hour going, fuck, that was extraordinary. Like, that was one of the most beautiful experiences of bliss and love and energy and connection. And you just realized how we are all completely connected. And it also does some brain resets. I don't know the science of it, of what it does as well, but it also does reset the brain chemistry in a good way, where it disconnects us from stress.
How often, like, do you have to do something like that? I see, like, I watch these documentaries. I see some people just go do it once to get through, like, a breakthrough, like a trauma or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like you're like, maybe once a month or something like that. And, like, is it, like, is there a purpose every single time, or is it more just for fun? Or
his protocol is 6 times over a period of 2 months. I didn't have the time because we're heading off to Dubai and Egypt at the beginning of March, so we didn't have time. But I'll be able to do 2 over a period of a month, and then this psilocybin journey. So I've done 3 journeys this month. That's enough to reset me in a great way for a full couple of quarters, right? And then just using a little bit of microdosing, in between.
And then do you always see kind of like into the future and see new ideas that come to light, and then you're able to like take action on some of those, like, during the rest of the year? Or tell me about how that works.
I don't know. I think for me, it's just more of like I did a mushrooms journey years ago, a psilocybin journey years ago, and had this profound impact on my relationship with my 2 boys, who were at the time, I guess, 15 and 13. And it just, everything made sense with what I was supposed to be as a father and how I was supposed to connect with them and what really mattered. And, it just all fucking made sense. And I don't know, maybe I could have done that with medication, or maybe I could have done that with running or whatever. But, in British Columbia right now, as an example, in Canada, every single drug has been decriminalized, just like Oregon.
Really?
Every single drug. You can
every
walk
single
around,
drug.
You
Even
could walk
heroin?
around with, you could walk around with 3 grams of cocaine in your pocket, and they can't do anything because they realize that everyone's going to use it anyway. They may as well test it and sell it in a clean way and tax it and then treat it.
Of course, tax it in Canada, right?
Well,
like you guys, holy cow! I thought America was bad, man. You Canadians, holy cow! I don't even know how you guys make money up there. That's probably why you're traveling the world.
You got it.
You probably have like a bank account in Switzerland, or like
no.
Who knows what you got? You gurus do. You mentioned you have 2 boys. How old are they now?
One is 19 and the other is almost 22.
So I need some parenting advice. I have an 8-year-old, okay? And, I'm a first generation, break the cycle kind of guy, right? So this is all new for me. Like, I've never had, before I started being an entrepreneur, I never made more than 50 grand a year. I'm worried about spoiling my kid, but I'm also worried about not spoiling them too, and like being too hard on them, right? So like, where's the balance at? Give me some parenting advice from an entrepreneur to like a, one of our boys. Like how do we do that?
It's the same as an entrepreneur. You really want to ground the company in your core values. And then you give a lot of perks and take care of your employees as long as they're living the core values.
Yeah,
but if your employees are being dicks, then you fire them. If your employees aren't living the core values, you get rid of them. So your kids have to still live your core values. Like, yes, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, please and thank you, open doors for women. Like, they've got to become good humans. They got to do stuff around the house because it's part of living in a house together. And if they are good people and they do good stuff, their daddy's going to take care of them because daddy's worked really hard. But they also, my sister said to her kids one day, if I ever hear any attitude about, the trip to Europe that you're getting, there'll never be another fucking trip to Europe as long as you live. Like, I'll sell the cottage, I'll sell the chalet. Like, and her kids grew up as these good kids in a very wealthy family, but they understood hard work. They also understood what their contribution was going to be to paying for their school, etc.
The one benefit I'm seeing right now as an entrepreneur is I can't be like today. Like today's Tuesday, I went and picked them up after school. We went to a movie. I came home. I'm shooting a podcast. Right, like it's cool, right? Because I'm able to do things with my boy at 8 that my dad was never able to do with me because he was working at the steel mill. Right, he was working hard. My mom was working. Right, and that's I'm blessed. I feel really lucky to be able to do what I want when I want to do it with the people I love doing it with. Even doing this podcast with you. I mean, this is a dream for me, man. I'll tell you, a kid like me should have no business, talking to a CEO of a company or a CEO of a $100 million company a couple different times, traveling the world like this. I mean, this is really a gift for me to be able to interview you and talk to you. So I appreciate that. I don't really have any other questions. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? We have a few minutes left. Anything I may have missed that you wanted to bring up?
I think a couple things. One is I don't think I've ever found an entrepreneur that says thank you enough to their team or praises their team enough or shows gratitude to their team enough or celebrates all the different projects getting completed or goals getting hit enough. We're constantly giving them more goals, more projects, faster, bigger, faster, bigger. They know I love them. I said it last quarter? Like if you only told your spouse that you love them once a quarter, they wouldn't be your spouse for very long, right? So you're constantly filling up that emotional And I think we need to, as CEOs, praise our people and thank them more and show gratitude more and celebrate the wins way more frequently than we do. And then lastly is to remember none of this shit matters. That this is just what we do to make money. We may as well hold hands and enjoy the journey because none of us are getting out of this alive.
Yeah, that's good final thoughts with Cameron Herold. There's 5 questions I ask every guest at the end of the show. Imagine you're on an island somewhere far away. There's no one else on the earth. You can take one book with you. What book are you taking with you?
Oh, wow, what book am I going to take with me? I think I'd probably take The Diary of a Yogi because I haven't read it yet, and I've heard it was Steve Jobs' favorite. I think it might be like good and blissful and like, you know, just kind of ground me. It might be one of those ones that you can reread over and over again.
Yeah, well, that's an important thing. What you're allowed to take a movie with you. What movie are you taking with you?
What movie am I taking with me? I would probably have to reach out to my son who's working in the movie industry and he's obsessed with the movie industry. And I'd have to ask him for like whatever the latest kind of, you know, the Moulin Rouge or the, I don't know, it's going to be some like, it's going to be some pretty deep movie that you can again watch with lots of different layers. It's going to end up being like a David Lynch movie or something, I'm sure.
All right. You're allowed to put one restaurant on there, and you've probably been everywhere around the world. I am so curious to hear what restaurant would you put on this island? Think about it. You have to go eat there every day. So it's got to have some. I would think you want it to have a couple different options, maybe. But
wow, that's terrible.
And I want to know where this place is at, because, like, again, I want to be able to Google search it, and I want to be able to go there one day.
I was gonna say Vija's in Vancouver, but it's too rich. I would say Nightingale in Vancouver is one of my favorites. Their food is amazing. The ambiance is amazing. Their menus, it's pretty vast. I'm actually I'm holding a dinner for 18 members of the main TED conference. I'm hosting and treating 18 other TEDsters to a dinner the night before TED starts this year, and that's where I'm taking them all.
That's awesome. You're allowed to go on one vacation, only one. You're allowed to go somewhere for a week, and you've probably been all over the world. Obviously, seven continent speaker. Where are you going for a week?
I'm going to go back to Venice. I got engaged there this year. I loved it. I fell in love there. I think it's just a really cool place. I think it's vastly underrated. I think, I'd go back to Venice again.
And here's going to be the hardest question. You get 24 hours with one person, past, present, famous, not famous. Who are you going to spend 24 hours with to pick their brain and spend some time with them? You want to pick their brain and get to know them a little bit better.
And like, do I die right after that, or is it
no?
Okay.
But you're the only person on Earth, and you're allowed to beam one person over for 24 hours. Who are you going to do it with?
Yeah, it would be Jobs. I've already had time with Elon. I've had a few sessions with him in small group and one-on-one. So I would take some time with Steve Jobs for sure.
What are you going to ask him?
I want to understand his inability to manage the bipolar or his inability to manage the press around the bipolar. I want to understand his thoughts around simplicity and all the different areas of simplicity and design. I want to understand how he was able to be so maniacally focused around some specific things and let go of some others. I want to understand how he was able to let go of the fact that they don't even make the iPhone and yet they sell it. Like how can you focus on your hedgehog concept so well where so many other companies would have to make everything and they outsource the manufacture of one of their biggest products, stuff like that.
That's fascinating, because everything I know about Steve Jobs is definitely somebody I always found fascinating. The whole story of founding a company, getting fired once they go public, and then hit started another company, got that going, and they bought that, and then he then came out with the iPod and the iPhone. I mean, it's just fascinating stuff, man.
It's crazy for sure.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on here. I know I got a ton of links to get a hold of you. What is the best way to get a hold of you at?
Well, all of my books are available on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes. The COO Alliance website for sure, and then the Second in Command podcast website. Definitely check out the Second in Command podcast.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Well, I've really appreciated our time today. Thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you on our travels some point in time. As soon as I can track you down, Mr. World Traveler, and maybe you can, I definitely got to do a retreat with you sometime and just see what that Zen life is all about, because I got to slow down a little bit.
Check out Baby Bathwater Croatia, because I think you'd love that one coming up this summer.
All right, well, if you guys got value out of this podcast, please like, subscribe, comment below, ask some questions. I can get your questions over to Cameron. I can get those answered for you. And we'll see you guys again on another episode of the Big Fish Cares podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Big Fish Cares podcast.